Hello, geometry students. We're going to start just a quick review of solving quadratics. And one second here. I forgot to plug in my Mobi. So when you're solving quadratics, meaning we have an x squared and an x in the same equation, you want to set it equal to 0. So I am going to add 36 over, and I get x squared plus 13x plus 36 equals 0. And you learn this in algebra because I just got done teaching my algebra kids this. So what you want is you want two numbers that multiply to get 36, and when you add them together you get 13. And I use this method. I call it my Argyle method because it looks like an Argyle sweater. So what two values, when you multiply them, you get 36. They add up to 13. Right, 9 and 4. So we can write this as x plus 9 times x plus 4. And this is reverse foiling method. So you set both of these equal to 0, and we get x equals a negative 9 and a negative 4. So we're going to have two answers for this type of equation. Okay, here's another one. Again, set equal to 0. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. So what two values, when you multiply them, you get positive 9, and when you add them together, you get negative 6. Right, negative 3 and negative 3. So we have x minus 3, and actually we have two of those, so we can write it as squared. So we know that we're just going to have one answer for this one, and it's going to be x equals 3. There's another way to do these problems where it doesn't factor quite nicely. For example, this one. Let's set it equal to 0. All right. Are there any values that add up to a positive 3, and when you multiply them you get a negative 12? No. So in this case we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. And if you want to write it down in your packet, you may. I don't know if there's a spot for it, but I will let you go ahead and write it down. It is x equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this equation, a is 1, b is 3, and c is negative 12. So I'm going to plug these in. So I have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 times 1 times a negative 12 all over 2 times 1. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify what's inside my radical first. So it's going to be a negative 3 plus or minus, it should come out to be 57, the square root of 57, all over 2. So you can leave it like this, or you can simplify the square root. In this case, you can't simplify the square root. So you could write it as a decimal. I'm going to tell you this, though, when you get to Algebra 2, they're not going to want you to write it as a decimal. But if you did, you had 2.25 or negative 5.25. So again, we're getting two answers. Okay, and I would accept either one of these is fine. All right, so that's just a really quick lesson on solving quadratics using the factoring method with what I like to call the Argyle and the quadratic formula.